Hello everyone, and welcome to the Wicked Weekly, or as we should probably call it, Hear the Wicked every couple of minutes, because Thomas keeps dropping some fascinating information that I think that's going to be really exciting, and at least if nothing else can kick off our continued discussion about the future Combat 2.0 changes for this game. For those who haven't seen it over on Twitter, he's sharing out the first preview of their class system. This is going to go into the 40 different classes, the names. Now, we've covered this before way back in the day when he was kind of talking about this over on Discord, but it has become more and more cemented. And I think especially if you guys are Final Fantasy Tactics fans, just like Thomas is, saying, hey, if you haven't been paying attention, if this is your first video here, we've been covering all of this. There is so much to unpack and so much to be excited about, and let's dive in. Before we get ahead of ourselves, I just want to highlight this one tweet from Thomas. He says he just came out of the system sync. Hotfix number 3 will land in about an hour or so. Patch number 1 is going to make some draws drop. Brownie points for people who can guess what features we're adding. And he goes on to confirm a few of these crazy things, and I really can't wait to hear your thoughts about it. And speaking of which, as more of this comes out, we'll be covering it right here for you as fast as we can, as in depth as we can. We're also giving away copies of this game, and that is largely because of the incredible support that you guys have given. Right now, almost to 800 subs in the last 28 days. So welcome into all the new faces. We got a couple sounding off in the comments. Rigged, Sydney, TBG, Robert Berberzer, Honey Badger, love the name, all right, and Old Dirty. Welcome to the channel. I'm so glad you guys are here. Let's dive in. Your support means the world to me. Those like buttons and the subscribes absolutely help the channel out. Now, in regards to Thomas's original tweet talking about the system sync, Secrypt put out a lot of different thoughts about what it might entail. What is the best guess that they have to say? Thomas actually replies, you'll be able to which Sea Creature is like, I'm going to be able to what? Like, he just unloaded a bunch of information there. And Thomas goes on to confirm they're assigning up to 8 runes or skills in total. So right now with the breach update, it went to 4. Looks like it's going to 8. That might very well happen with this patch 1. And who knows if that's the big shocker. Ultimately, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. I think that's going to open up your build as a character to many things. There's the illuminate spell, healing spells, so many different things that you can kind of play around with. And 4 to 8, I'm very curious to see what that entails, and so I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. But now let's dive into the meat of why you clicked on this video in the first place. Thomas given the first preview of their class system. I like to call it the job system, but that's just a little bit of Final Fantasy bias that's in me, ingrained into my youth, so to speak. Anyway, Thomas writes, hey folks, posting this here so people who can already contribute a little bit to what they've laid out. And yes, we will still be making changes to all of this. And yes, some of this stuff you might not agree with. Why is Barbarian set to plate? Have you ever seen Conan? But here it goes. So, high level class breakdown. They have 16 single attribute classes. They've got 4 in strength. This is going to be the Brute, the Warlord, the Barbarian, and the Sentinel. And you can see what each weapons they're using in this case, both from one-handed and two-handed, respectfully. Then under Dexterity, they've got 4, Swashbuckler, Fencer, Archer, and Rogue. And just remember, this is single attributes. There are combined attribute classes coming up here in just a second, and you can see what weapon and what armor type that they're using. In the Faith category, you got Cleric, Monk, Flagellant, and then finally the Exorcist, which is really interesting. Under Intelligence, you got your Sorcerer, your Mage, your Priest, and your Oracle, all rocking the cloth and various different weapons from staves, tomes, to orbs. So new weapons are still going to be rolling out in this game. Now, as they go into combined attribute classes, they got 24 for us. So strength plus dexterity would get you a pugilist, a squire, a lancer, and a marksman. I want you guys to visualize now for me Final Fantasy Tactics job selection system. This is what I think we're going to be moving into. Not a turn-based. I did see somebody worried that the game was going to go turn-based. The combat isn't changing, just your progression level and how you build out your class is going to be where this migrates to. Moving on to Dexterity and Faith, you have the Aesthetic, the Pilgrim, the Vanquisher, and the Blade Master. And then under Strength plus Faith, you have the Knight, the Paladin, the Crusader, and the Dragoon. It looks like, if you think about the strength, that your weapon in a way is determining your class. That would be the assumption that I have to make depending on this, the stats and the weapon, but we'll see, because great swords and stuff like that exist in a couple places. So maybe you get to pick and select, which kind of would be kind of cool. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Anyway, moving on, Strength and Intelligence. You've got the Templar, the Mystic, the Spell Warden, and the Contortionist. Under Dexterity and Intelligence, you got the Assassin, the Ninja, the Samurai, or the Trickster. Faith and Intelligence, you get the Reaper, the Necromancer, which he's been talking about since day one, since last year. Pet classes, let's freaking go. I cannot wait to see how that is. Using the Bone Staff as a weapon, and that's where you start to kind of see, again, a little bit more customization. All right, anyhow, you also have the Witch, and you have the Plague Doctor. So they say one-handed versus two-handed counts. For the one-handed classes, you see 20, which would be the Brute, Swashbuckler, Fencer, Cleric, Flagellant, Exorcist, Sorcerer, Priest, Oracle, Pugilist, Squire, Paladin, Templar, Mystic, Assassin, Ninja, Dragoon, Witch, Trickster, and Vanquisher. In the two-handed category for weapons, you get your Warlord, your Barbarian, your Sentinel, your Archer, your Rogue, your Mage, your Lancer, your Marksman, your Blade Master. Then you got the Knight, the Crusader, the Spell Warden, Samurai, Reaper, Necromancer, Pilgrim, Monk, Ascetic, Contortionist, and the Plague Doctor. Obviously, not everybody is necessarily a fan. They're concerned. They're curious about the attribute points, and the team's going to keep going more and more into depth about that as we continue to roll into what this might be. I don't think it's all going to obviously happen with patch number 1, but it will be interesting to see if they start to kind of seed these systems in. Ultimately, timeline wise, I'm still thinking Combat 2.0, we might see some of these classes start to roll out, and then when you start looking towards 1.0, these classes roll out as well. It's not guaranteed in my mind, just to kind of set some expectations. The devs haven't said one way or the other. We're still unpacking all of it. But I'd set some expectations that it's possible that a bunch of these classes do come in the game at different phases during early access, with 1.0 adding in even more, and then they can always patch the game later with even more classes if for some reason they aren't ready, they aren't what we want them to be, if it, just doesn't feel fun yet, because 40 classes is a heck of a lot of different build options. And I think that's going to be interesting to see, because then, just in terms of a light discussion about all of this, just my raw thoughts on it is, right now, based off of how the stat system and the allocation system works, this drives me into multiple characters. It just makes sense, because I don't want to spend all my Fallen Embers always on re-rolling a specific stat to get a kind of build. Weapons, especially some weapons, being heavily baked behind having certain attribute stats is a little bit frustrating. And ultimately what you find is, like, maybe I would try with that weapon, but I end up kind of just defaulting into more single statted weapons and not necessarily experiencing the fullness of what all the different weapons can offer to us, the players. And so I'm seeing the benefits already just in this discussion of the system in and of itself. But I get the frustration, and I'm not going to try to diminish your opinion if you don't like what we're talking about right now. But I would just ask, because all of our feedback is important. I want to always raise up all the different voices, not just my own. I would just ask you to continue to provide that feedback and look for more information. We got to be very careful about both our expectations, but our assumptions, because any of this stuff can change. And what I typically find within frustration around gaming in general usually boils down to unmet expectations, whether you knew you had them or you didn't, or the developers communicated something and then had to make a change that it didn't end up working out. That's usually where I see a lot of the friction within the community. However, here we are. We know we're moving in this direction. This is going to be something that's happening, and I cannot wait to go hands-on and see how it feels with the already incredible game that we have and we're playing right now. as I've always said, I'm going to keep you guys up to date on the developments. I'm hoping, I'm not going to lie, that Thomas, slows down a little bit. Like, this is, for me, I don't know if this video goes up the same day as the Hotfix 3 video, but holy freaking crap. I was like, oh man, I gotta talk about this. We got to get this information out to you guys. So we'll see. I'm hopeful this is it for the day. But if it isn't, we'll be sure to keep you guys up to date. Keep it locked to the channel. Get involved in the Discord. Top link in the description will get you to all the content, the Discord, etc. Love to have you there. Love to have you checking out the podcast channel or the MMO channel. All is fun and games when it comes to video games and content. So thank you guys so much for your time. God bless. I hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care.